let's get into it. Today's lesson, the opening bell, what to look for and what to avoid. Very crucial. A lot of traders in chat, that's one thing that they're, it's difficult to trade, and a lot of platforms that makes it difficult to trade. I will say, Thinkorswim, E-Trade, a lot of these platforms that aren't premium brokers that have, super fast execution speeds, direct access broker essentially, they may have a bad fill time. It may take a second till you get filled. There'll be that little bit of, slippage essentially, right? So regardless, what I'm looking for in any of these plays, I'm looking, like we talked about last week in last week's lesson, what I'm looking for in scanners at the opening, before the opening bell, what I'm looking for in each play essentially, right? The main thing, just like in scanners, for most of these plays and what I'm looking for at the bell especially, right? Especially, does it have a PR, like today, is it PR, no PR? What's the flow? What's it done in the past chart history? I'm looking at all these things ahead of time. Of course, you've got to scope those things out. So no, going into these trades team, you've got to understand. Just like I talked about in last week's lesson, so I'll coordinate these two together. So go watch that one before. What I look for in scanners, what I look for in pre-market, essentially. The same thing goes with these plays, right? Because you're at the opening bell. So I'm looking at what the float is. Is it something that can go from 0 to 100, kind of like today, like ANVS? Does it have that potential? Oh, on top of the fact, does it? Let's go to past chart history, which then ANVS had a couple of days right earlier, but it didn't really have anything like today. But it had some spiking day, so it just gives you a little bit of a clue, somewhat of a clue. But then you're looking at, does it have a PR, not a PR? You're looking at all these things before the opening bell. So and you have an inkling of what is possible, right? So those always, team, come into play. Now, let's just get into these plays. All the way back to over a year ago, and I went through all kinds of different trades that I try to find, take screenshots of from here till, literally over a year since I've been doing these recaps, at least that I've saved. I've been doing recaps for even longer. I just never saved them. I've been finally saving them all on my external hard drive. News related, up from, I think it was even below 180. It couldn't go back far enough on the screenshot, at least on the video that I didn't do on, because this was off of a recap. As you can tell, you can see my crosshairs right here. But this was up from, say, just the 150 to 60 area. So in pre-market, even before 6 a.m., which is when, essentially trade ideas starts picking up, at least my time, we see the spike, right? We're up from 180 up to 260, right? We're up to 280, really filling that channel between, the VWAP and 280. So what I'm looking for at the opening bell at this play, when now we're hitting the new high of day, okay, now we're Dex talking, okay, we're new high of day and Dex talking. What's usually going to happen? That Taylor trader effect, back to that. Remember last, that really bodes well when it's hotter, team, when the market's much, much, much hotter than it is now. But I wouldn't say it's got to be super hot. As long as it's somewhat hot, this is what you're going to see. Last year this was Taylor traders every Friday, because there was only one or two plays. And whatever play hit that top, high of day, and it was hitting the high of day, and it was pretty much the number one mob. It was the number one mob play, but I'll say the number one top gainer, maybe the number two top gainer, but it was fighting for it, right? And then it was up there, but it's the mob play now. Everyone's moving over to this. It's hit new high of day. This is what you usually see at the open. So now, if you want to trade this at the bell, know that hotter market conditions 7-8 times out of 10, this is what you're going to see. Now, how big the spike is, a lot of us never know. I mean, we don't know. Is it going straight to 17, or straight to $4 right off the, or 450? The 320 straight up to 360 and 3, 4, 5 candles is good enough for any, should be good enough for any trader. But I know, again, when that volume comes in, this is what you're looking for. This is why the arrows are here at the opening bell. What are you looking for? Flush, and I mean a flush of green. I hate that this is one before I change it over, but this candle would have been green, but a flush of green, 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 like I was showing you earlier. Time and sales is green, green, everything's green, and this goes straight up. But what you want to do before the opening bell, you don't want to wait for this to start spiking. You want to, if you see this and it's forming this triangle and this wedge, see the flag, here's your wedge, ascending on top of the fact, this is what you're going to get. Now, don't wait for this to start spiking. Avoid that. Avoid upper shadows, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to go chasing. Your goal is, like Taylor Trader, is to get in before this. So if you can't, for some reason, pre-market trade, as soon as that opening bell hits, you better press the market over button. Now, I'm going to warn you right now that a lot of times on the lower tier brokers, now I love Thinkorswim, but your fills right here aren't going to be great. You may get filled at about 340 instead of about 320, Know that off the bat. So avoid that if you're worried about that. If you don't have light speed, avoid that and get in pre-market. You should be able to if you have Thinkorswim or E-Trade. There should be no reason not to. This is your time to get in. Anywhere in here is fine. I'm not saying you have to get in on the bounce of 3, break over 320, whatever you feel comfortable with. This is your time to get in, break a new high of day. This is your area. or right when that marketing or the bell rings, boom, you're in as soon. As soon as you hear ding, boom. As soon as it's 8:30 and whatever, boom, you're in. You're in. Get in your best feel you can, knowing you're going to get a spike. Now, say you want to avoid that. You don't like that. You want to avoid that. Wait for a pullback to support. 7, 8, 9 times out of 10 when it's super hot and it's the play, the number one play, it's the mob play. That first pullback is your usually best one to get in. This is what I'm looking for, team. I'm usually avoiding this, and I'm telling you 9 out of 10 times I'm avoiding this at the open. I consider this still the opening bell, so that's why I put these trades in here. Look at this VWAP bounce off of really, because it's the high of day at the time, which I love. You've got to keep pre-market on. Here's your old pre-market resistance. Bounce right off of it plus the VWAP. You want some of this move right here? Here's your time to get in, or right when the bell rings. You want to avoid this? Here's your time to get in. Be a patient trader. Trade what works best for you. Cap R. Loved showing you this trade. Up from in news, as you can tell. And I mean, when you see news pop and it pops in a hurry, and you've missed this. This is Deck used to be this was one of his go-to. This is kind of like Mel's go-to now. News comes out, boom, he's in ASAP. And look at this move. You're $2.50 up to $7. Now, most traders probably weren't in until $3 to $3.50, but look at the move even from there. Straight up. Now, me and Deck, where do we want this? And back to where I showed everyone. Use your past chart history. You're already looking at this. You're already going, man, if this can pull back here, I know this can go. This obviously this can go. This went 3 candles, went from $2.50 to $7 and pre-market on no volume, really, essentially. Of course, uncontrolled, but still, you get the point what it can do in no volume. Imagine when volume comes in, so it can move. Now, it does take longer to finally get back to that area, but again, wait for your play. So when this kind of starts coming down, what to look in pre-market. I love these plays that spike real hard and start fading off with resistance as you would want support, but then comes resistance. The VWAP didn't hold. Fail, crushing more. Where does it come down to? Exactly where me and Deck were calling and yelling out. And that's fine that it ran all that. It's 100% literally essentially almost retracement move from $7 almost back to $3.50. You're going to at least get somewhat of a bounce there. Like I've told anyone with any of these trades, you may not get the up to $7.50. That's fine. But look what you still get right off the bat. You're filled at 375 area, right up to 425 in a matter of 2 minutes at max, a minute and a half probably. Then a matter of 6 minutes or so, you're finally through. You're testing at least the VWAP, I should say, I guess, but still get my point. In the 450 plus area, 475 area. So you're up $1 in 6 minutes? Beautiful trade. Now, of course, again, kind of like today's trade, some that kind of are elongated. But what to look for at the open in this? That's fine if this pulls back. When you start seeing this start pulling back, don't try to check. This is not happening. This doesn't lead to this. This usually leads to more of this, dumping, especially at the open. So what to avoid at the open? You start seeing this essentially, kind of what I like to call essentially a bearish flag, because here's the pole, here's your flag, a flag going the upside, the wrong way, right? Usually what happens, it's going to break off and go the way that usually, so if this was going up and the flag was going this way, we want it to go up. But when the flag's going down and beautiful flag goes out this way and here's your flag, when it breaks to the side it should, whammy. And so wait for that. Be a patient stock sniper and wait for the pullback. Here's the move too overall, just so you can see. So you thought 750 was the move. I just want to show you the overall extended, kind of like today. ANVS is now really in. Wow, there goes the VWAP crack. Yikes. But again, this is when we're going to be loving life. When we see 240 up to 11, 500% move ish or close to, and it holds up to 300 plus or so throughout the day. More moves. SLS, another one, 2 examples in a row I want to show you so that way you kind of see examples in a row of what to expect and what to see. Spiking, now not nearly as huge, a little bit lower, about the 215-ish range, somewhere in that area, up to 290 at max. Now at the open, what are we doing? Just like earlier, fading off. Didn't spike as hard, fading off. So I'm expecting, I don't care if it's as big as this one, if it's a small and it goes to the VWAP and that's it. But I'm expecting a bounce where? We got 1 here. We got 2 here. I remember alerting in chat, and I won't, like I said, don't feel like, but I have where I went through my lesson and I showed my alerts that day like I do most days. I try to alert ahead of time, right in this area. Love seeing these coming down to some support. This is what I was calling. Watch for this to bounce at the 240 area. Bounce right on the dot. Beautifully at 240. Look at the move. So wait for these to kind of come down to you. So again, trending up, which we'll get into maybe some more of those in a minute. I think we do. But trending up, you see that? Just want to go back to, that's why I was kind of went from that to this. That first example was trending up, and we saw a spike and then continuation. Trending, we did, and that comes, all these, what? Number one thing, news, PR. You know, we come back through any of these. News, PR, spiking in pre-market. News, PR, spiking in pre-market. Where's the first example? News, PR, spiking in pre-market. But the difference is what? In the last 30 minutes before the market opens, we are trending up. 30 minutes before the market opens, trending down. 30 minutes before the market opens, well, more like in it was the last 5 minutes, but even the last probably close to 30 minutes overall though, right? More so trending down. So you see the perfect bounce coming down to support. So notice those two things. Now stocks that kind of do trend down, but then find a little bit of level off level before we kind of find, you know, the open. What to do then, right? We see a huge spike from say 4, maybe even above, up to 9, almost $10, right? Hovering around the VWAP. I'll tell you 9 times out of 10, don't be caught in this. You know, I like to say that 9, but 7, 8, this is what's going to happen. If you can get that quick spike, if you're in and out, right at the boom, you're in at a good fill, say at 650, whatever that is, 640, whatever the open is, right up to $7, peak over at 715-ish. You know, money for you. But look how fast that's right back to your entry level and below. Just like, avoid these. Avoid stocks a lot of the time. I'm going to tell you right now, team, that kind of just tend to hover. And I'll go through a couple more of these and then when it's not hot. WorkX is hot. We'll see this move. Watch the move from WorkX. This isn't the move you're looking for. Wait for your play to come to you. Don't let these little mid, kind of in-between moves that's been, you know, this is the early on, been hesitating for a while. Not what's it doing? That's the main thing, what we're looking at the last 30 minutes. What do we do? Or even the last 10, 5 minutes before the market opens. You know, back to even that Taylor Trader type effect. Are you the one? Are you... Right here, you're not doing anything. Or who is the one? Not you, because you're not doing anything. You're not doing jack squat. So a little bit of a mob moves in, right? Because they know they've seen the move. Okay, they come in, get a little bit of a gain here, but then all over and then just back down. Let's just get to WORX. Look at that. Look at the move, right? You know, like early on, okay, that what it ended up doing. Maybe get back. No, it went way more than just $10. It went all the way up, and it was at right now, essentially, when it was doing it, hitting high of day in power hour, right? So don't let those fool you. Your bounce area, which I didn't put the line in here, it goes down. I should have extended this a tad bit further, but right after this, it goes down in the 1 minute time frame. You can tell there's the bounce right there, but then it comes down about 2 minutes later, 3 minutes later, it comes down a little further. So you see this area right here. That area right there is this, where you almost come down to it. Wait a couple more minutes, and I didn't. Like I said, in the video, I just couldn't because these are screenshots from lessons or recaps I did last year. But if you just would have waited about right when 30 minutes in the market open, look how this comes right down to this little area. Perfect area to get into, kind of like that 375 bounce that I showed you from Cap R, and then the same type of continuation up the rest of the day. So at the open, team, again, don't let a lot of these opening bell fool get in. You have to trade right at the opening bell. A lot of the time, I try to avoid that. Wait for your play to come to you, because this is still, to me, in the opening, but first 30 minutes is still opening. You know, there's still tons of volume there. Don't try to squeeze and force a trade in there at the open. I'm trying to, the main thing you'll get out of that is that right there. If anything, wait for your trade to come to you if it is at the opening bell. I'm trying to get this one in there just perfectly. Like say IBIO. IBIO, first off, too. Let's just show you where this one's up from. Up from 30 plus, you know, that was starting in the mid 30s, around 40 cents, right? Actually, it wasn't, it was in the 30s. Look where this opens up at, right? Not too much higher, but still, I mean, for the smaller stock that it is, but still opening up, what, in this, you know, the 50, almost 60 cent range. I mean, you know, close to 100% up on the day when it opens. So a good little move. But look where the pullback ends up being. And it's essentially the VWAP, but look how many times it did it once, and then it did it twice, almost a third, really a second time, but a third that really, truly tried. And you love those where it fails right here, team. So I'm going to go up a little bit further. But right here's the first time when it failed. Almost the second attempt, but right here. You love when we fail and then stay up. We don't just come finally, we stay right there and say, well, we're in this to win it. Braveheart. I wasn't even a Braveheart character. What? William Wallace. I'm here to fight and win for all of us in Dagmar Trades. I don't sound anything like William Wallace right now, but I am trying. But when you get these stocks to stay up, close to resistance, right, and don't fade off, VWAP holds it this time, right? That's when, and I'll say that, you do see this a lot. So now we're in that first 30 minutes. Now we can scroll back up, but that's why and I'll wait for that bounce. This is letting you know, and you're, oh, well, I could have bought in here. This is letting me know in the first 30 minutes, okay, we're moving in. I should have bought in somewhere in here. If you would have held, now you got to have a stop loss. Say if you still were in somewhere in the mid 50s, upper 50s, this is only pulled back to like 50 something. This isn't like it's like it fell back 30 cents. So even if you were still in here, this still ends up being the play there for the first, half hour to hour into the market. At least for, there may be other plays that day, but just to show you, you're in before the bell, you were still good here. This was the primary to get in, though, just to kind of wait for if you don't like trading that opening bell. Because look what happens. You may not get this immediate flush, even though you're the one, and you still end up being the one, and you would have been fine anywhere in here. You would have been fine. That Taylor trader type mentality where you're getting in early, right? You're still good to go. And your stop loss most likely could have and should have been that area, that 50 cent. That's that front line you've got to hold. Bounces right off it with the VWAP. Whew, right up. Again, the move. Look at the move. Wonky plays. Let's kind of get into wonky plays here. CODX. Kind of get into ones that are the ones I'm kind of sketched out to play because they're all over the place. They're very wicky, very rangy, very up and down. Don't trade the open even if it shows you again, because look at this. This is where it should scare some traders off. Yeah, new high of day. Here we go. We're the one. Forming a beautiful flag. Look at this beautiful flag. Beautiful wedge. Boop, right on off. Now truly down to support, which holds, which is great. But then you're right up, and then you're right down. So avoid this. Avoid it. This is where I traded this stock. I'll never forget last year. This was one of my first big money makers and going really loving, and again, loving my bounce and yelling at deck. And this is when he really first started getting and just destroying bounce plays. Was 2019 into early of last year. This was it. Look how beautiful this ends up hitting off of old. And this is when I started coming up with that sandwich stuff too. And I started noticing where, and it didn't quite hit it, it doesn't always, but old resistance, and that's where I kind of came up with it because of deck. Old resistance equals new support, but just that sandwich type effect from it, where you get a bun, another bun, and then you get the true beautiful bounce. Now this one's a great bounce too, just as good, if not real obviously better, but this is the one where I got in with the move back up to the VWAP and then held like my, just smaller shares for this little ride up, which was fine. Once I can get in a little bit bigger, I can hold longer, but beautiful bounce play. Wait for your trade to come to you. That's the trade. Avoid this if you want to. Totally fine. I totally understand it. Wait for your trade to come to you. This is very sketchy plays, very hard to determine. Yeah, it's like the thought. It's just a little bit more. And again, you can see this one's zoomed in, so you can see, and I meant to put the line a little bit more over, and I forgot to put the arrow in there. Good job, AK. Good job finishing this slide off there. But again, bounce number one, old resistance equals new support. There's your first true pullback. A little sketchy, but hey, VWAP plus $15 support. Beautiful bounce to be had. And then again, later on when I got in right here. AIM. That's what I thought. This was from last March, if I can read what month I'm in right now. That obviously says 3. But again, AIM, look at this at the open. Trending up, which I'll show you. Trending up, right? Still looking good in a flag from the morning. But look what happens and why I tell you just to 9 times, avoid that open. Looking good, right? We're going to spike. We're in a hot. Last March was hot. All because of COVID was hot. We do get a true bounce. We get a great little bounce in a play. But that's what you have to wait for, and that's what I would tell traders to do. Wait for your play to come to you. Now, if you wanted to try to get in here, like say you like the 320 area better than say down here at these lower shadows, that's fine. You could have been in here at the 320 area and still golden, held to your stop loss, which you could have done, which should have been at least somewhere in this area, if not a little lower. But in here at 320. And of course, the lower shadows it did hold, but look at the move back up to 390. But that's why and where it bounced. Notice then the move, what AIM ends up doing when we get in a hot market. At first, sometimes we see this 2-team, but look how later on in the day, and then we hold the gains. I just like bringing that up. But again, look where the bounce ends up being. We can go back to it. Sometimes it's not this lower, and it ends up being a little bit better area. I think around this area, it goes to the lower portion of where the bounce could be, these lower shadows, perfectly. Avoid the mess at the open. Again, why? Now, you could have gotten a good trade in here. Here's another one. BMRA. Moving up to around, let's see here, around the 650-ish area. Somewhere right around 650. Having some resistance in pre-market, right? Finally break above it. Now we're showing in the 30 minutes, even 10 to 15 minutes before the market opens, we could be the one, that Taylor Trader type mentality. Sorry, I know I'll keep bringing you up to Taylor Trader, but you kind of, that was kind of your thing there for a while, so I'll give you credit for it. But as you can see, we move up to it. We get a nice little spike, say from 625 open entry, somewhere in there, anywhere in the $6, $6.15 to $6.25 range, in before, like, okay, you're the one I'm in, before pre-market or even at the opening bell. And you do get a move close up to 8. Upper shadows would have been hard to get out anywhere in the $7 area, though, honestly, because those upper shadows, but could have gotten out in the $7 area. So, yes, great $1+ move. But again, look how fast those upper shadows reverse back down, and where I just would have taken an easier wait 15 minutes or so, still to me considered not at the opening truly bell, but still in the opening 15 minutes. Today's how long? That to me is still in the opening, so wait for your play to come to you. Now, what I'm looking for, if you do it again here, you're the one. You're trending up. Look how the volume burst comes. You're going to get those a lot of time, but even on these trades, as you can see, even BMRA flies up to 10 later. All these I've showed you do a lot of what at the open team. Scroll back in this video when I'm done. A lot of them are doing what? This at the open, a little sketch. You get beautiful bounce plays, and then you get the push, the true crazy move. I'm telling you, try to avoid the open as much as you want to trade it and think it's just going to be gap and go, and here we fly. Truly, that gap and go mentality really hasn't been much of a thing to me, it seems like, over the past 2 or 3 years. At first, it really, 2016, 17, 18, you saw a little gap and goes. It was flying up in pre-market. Boom, opening bell. It just continued to skyrocket. You don't tend to see that too often anymore. Again, this is one I've showed so many times in chat. Wanted that support area, 120, 117. I got filled right here. Of course, it goes down a little bit further. Now, finally, I get to finally show you what this move ends up being. But again, you spike in pre-market. Let me go down to the full move here. Look at the move. Again, where does it end up happening? Later in throughout the day, not just straight up to 100. Told you that earlier, but with the whole ANVS thing, trades that usually end up staying up, they end up happening later in the day. They don't just go straight to 100 in the first 10, 15, 30, 45 minutes, an hour or whatever. Again, spiking in pre-market. I think it was like at the $5 area. Again, couldn't go back far enough, but this was from like a $5 up to 150-ish area, pulling back. So what tends to happen, honestly, more times than not, for sure, when you get this kind of a pullback before the market open. And this is where I usually, and if I do trade these team, like the SLS trade I showed you earlier, or the cap bar, those pullbacks at the opening bell. I don't trade spikes at the opening bell. I trade pullbacks at the opening bell. That's what I'm looking for, way more so than I'm looking for spikes at the bell. Pixie, again, where you could get in, right? You could get in at the opening bell. Could have easily have gotten in here anywhere in the last, 30 minutes, boom. And that's why I do a lot of these right here. This is 30 minutes before the market opens, 8:01 essentially. That's my time, central to center time. 30 minutes before the market opens here. Easily could have been like, I'm the one. Anywhere in here, you're great. Because we do, I think this may have come out too with news right at that time. So that obviously really helps out when a stock, it's been hot. Like, look at last May. This is May 19th of last year. So, I would have loved to see this in May 19th. Stock go from $6 up to $15.60. Regardless, though, very good to see in 30 minutes before the bell opens, especially now, kind of like today. PRs are rolling. PRs are what's spiking, what usually is what's working, right? That's usually what spikes plays. Sometimes no PRs. We'll see that, but usually a lot of the time when you see it has no PR and it's spiking is what? It's because it's a previous top spiker. It's a low float. It's because it has spiked in the past. That's the main reason why it's spiking. But back to PR plays, which is great to see, and they're spiking 30 minutes before the market opens. Again, what happens? You're trending up, you've released news, and especially, like I said, 30 minutes before the market opens, that's just a super plus on top of the fact. So that way we go from $7 all the way up to $12+. You're the one. You can get in here at the opening bell if you want to be a little more risky, biscuit, snakeskin, Randy, and go for that surge at the opening bell. Get a great little move. What's this from? Probably 10, 5, what's that? Is it 10? Am I right? No, 11. 1150-ish up to 1450-ish, probably on fills. Close to that area. But again, you have to know these trades. You have to see them more often. Fill them out, and this is what you're looking for. Immediate. This is a halt up, but you have to see the green coming in, like I did earlier with ANVS. You don't see a huge red candle and pull back and surge. You'll see those. The more you watch these, that's what you're avoiding. You're
avoiding that huge red, and all you want to see is green. Sometimes you don't get the best fill. Sometimes on these, when I do trade them, like say on ANVS, obviously that was a quick spike. That wasn't like going from, you get my point, it's kind of slowly sitting there for around the $44 area, then spiked up. I kind of got to watch it happen in front of me. This is an opening bell type thing. It's really hard to get into good fill, my point being. So even if you got filled at $12, because all that volume, that spread just all over the place, everyone's just pressing buy, as obviously as you can see, it's hard to get filled there. But if you would have gotten filled here, still a good spike, right? But I'm just not going to risk that. I'm not trying to jump in here, even with that surge of volume, the surge of green, like I see on halting plays like earlier with ANVS, or plays that go start flying up over, breaking high a day. This isn't breaking high a day, by the way. Also, this is, moving into what was and still kind of end up being a little bit of resistance in that area from pre-market. But again, what I'm looking for, that's fine if you want to trade this anywhere in here, and I've kind of told you how, want to get in with the news, or again, if the news was already released and you're trending up with it, that's fine. Get in, but learn how to get out. You don't want to stay in these trades forever at the opening bell, because there's so much, as I've shown you, up and down, so much fluctuating. I wait for these trades to come down to me and get a good bounce in. I didn't put it in right there. I meant to put the line in there. And again, where would it have been good to get in? It would have been hard to see that this is actually, and it doesn't actually get right down to that. But that's where you're waiting for a pullback, like I've showed you with a lot of these. Wait for all this madness to happen. Wait for a pullback in a play to come to you. Here's one, which again, no news. Not doing anything before the market open. Look what this does, within the first hour of the market open, this goes, shoots up almost 100%, right? Crazy move. How to trade this? What are you looking for? Oh, well, here goes all of it. I forgot what this was anyway. I didn't get a good screenshot on it. Just, ANVS, here goes ANVS. It's flying up. Kind of like earlier with deck, you have to feel those momentum plays. You have to see them enough and jump in. Maybe you're not in on any of these candles right here, and you wait for a true break of what? Say the $4 area, and you get in right here at the break of this candle over 4 and ride it up maybe to 5, 450, whatever. I'll tell you right now, they're not the easiest to trade. There's some specific, like, well, what do I, you just notice after seeing these time in and time out, that flush of green coming in. It's flying up. Break of a true resistance area with all that volume in the green. That's all you're looking for. I mean, look how many green candles in a row. So what do you think the time and sells in level 2 looks like? Well, of course, level 2 is just going up, up, and up. But that's why I love using the time and sells myself a little bit more so when I see these crazy volatile plays at the open. ABIO, here's another one. Trending at the open. Looks good, right? Now trending up, breaking new high of day. Again, thinking what? It could maybe spike. Why don't trade these? Because sometimes, even when it could be the hot time of the year, like ABIO, last May, right around this time, was still relatively hot, right? This goes from $4 low all the way up to $13. I think that's a pretty darn good move, my friends. But at the open, that's why I say just avoid it and wait for your play to come to you. Look where I put the line in there, and I'll scroll down a little bit further. Look where my crosshairs are at when I was giving this recap. Love giving this recap last year, and this is where I got in on this trade. Took a second to finally spike back up, and it did halt up, and then I got out of it right there. And that's all I traded it. I may have traded in here. I can't remember, but I know this was the pullback because I was yelling in everyone in chat, like I always do, like 30 times. I'm sorry. I just like to kind of get my alerts out there. But right here, off of old resistance. Oh, finally above it. Yes, please come back down. Please. Oh, yes, on a field. Equals new support. And there it is, kind of zoomed in there. So you can see perfectly. 1, 2, 3 candles to get in. 1, 2, 3, 4 candles to get in off of that support, and then we saw the move all the way up, as you can see. Just redonkulous moves last year, every month. SNOA, this is the day after. This is actually May 29th. That was May 28th. Here's May 29th for you from last year. Spiking up in pre-market. I think this may show you more of the move. How about on a Tuesday we get this spiking from $5.40 up to $12, and the next day we're looking at it $19. This is what I'm talking about, people. It was so freaking fire last year. It just spoiled me. I'm a spoiled little brat now. Anyway, SONA, what to look for at the open. See, you can get those spikes at times. See, again, trending up at the open, kind of does dump off at holding, and then kind of really nothing right here before the open. Now, if you want to pull that trigger and be a part of that person that gets a part of this move, that's fine, because those moves sometimes can be, oh my gosh, wow, there all of a sudden there goes that spike. But this isn't really, this is falling off. This looks like it could fall down more. So very risky right there as it does go straight up. Doesn't halt up. It actually halts going down. Ends up being a beautiful bounce area, as you can see.
perfectly, and I meant to put that line up a little higher. That was my bad right there. But the green line, as you can see what I'm trying to say, though, look at that come down perfectly to the old resistance equals new support. TNXP. This is a lot of these plays from last year. I love it when it was hot. Trending up at the open, right? TNXP. This one was coming up from below $1.35, $1.40 mark, trending up to about 190. Not up too much, but a decent amount, I think. Right? I think that's right. I only had one screenshot of it, but still, look what it does at the open. Decent. It was up 60 something percent when I took this, and that was when it was at $1.48. So it must have been up even higher than that, because you can see when I took this, it was at $1.48, and it was up 64% at the time. Look what it happens right at the open. One little tug. Two big tugs, but look where the support comes down to. And that's where I wish I would have had, and I couldn't get it. I'm like, oh, right here. If you could scroll back, and I couldn't really get it. It was kind of I did it so fast, it just would have been like ugly and blurry. But this area right here was a shelf for the longest time when we spiked up and just could not get over this $1.65 mark. Just couldn't. Then look how we could not get over it, couldn't get over it. Then boom, finally kind of raise above it, finally sit on top of it, and then look what happens when we come back to it again. Beautiful bounce play. If anything, like I said at the open, I am avoiding the buys right at the open. If anything, pull back to me, and I buy a pullback at the open, if anything. Again, THMO, why to avoid the open? Right at the open, 9 times out of 10 for me anyway. Now, if you want to buy the open, you can see a good spike. Be a part of that first 30 minutes right here. Like you can see, okay, you're holding up, beautiful spike from say 450 up to 750. You're holding overall your gains in the 7 to 750 mark, 30 minutes before the bell opens. Just like Taylor Trader, find you a bounce play right here at the $7 area. Old resistance equals new support. Get in here for a bounce play, say at 7. Hold for the opening bell. Maybe you got in here at the opening, right before the opening, right there at that bounce area. Whammy, right up into a halt up, opens up right here, right beside it, flies in a new high of day, hits 875 roll, shoots straight back down, and then we're kind of hesitating, hovering in that area before we're kind of done, right? So again, you can trade the open, but be smart. Find your area of support, maybe, if you want to be in pre-market, knowing that it's the one, and wait for your spike. If you don't get your spike, get out, let it dump over, wait for a beautiful bounce off support. Find your support areas. ED&T, here's another one. Last year was hot, right? How much I want to talk about how last year was hot. You can still see these plays that do this. That's my last one. Okay, I was making sure. Spike up from $2 up to $5.55. Look at the open. We're still holding relatively well, holding the VWAP for the most part, right? We're holding it because we're above it. Up and down, up and down, up and down, cracola. So we can see that, and that can happen. So be careful at the open and avoid, if you can, unless you get used to them, team, the open. The only time to ever trade the open, and I trade the open, like I've said 100 times, 9 times out of 10, find these support areas, these pullbacks, like, my first couple of slides. Let me go back to them real quick before I get done for the lesson. But these support areas like this, just wait for your support areas. You're like, okay, I see if this comes down to 240, and then whammy, got my 240 bounce. Don't let this up and down movement fool you and get caught in that, and it goes up on you, and then it calls down. Know that moves can happen. Just wait for your play to come to you. That's why I say at times at opening, if anything, I'll buy a pullback. I'll find a pullback in support, but I'm not usually going to try to force my way into a trade and get in here at the spike at the opening bell with this to happen on me. Opening bell buy, boom, it just falls right down on me. That's why I'm waiting for a bounce. I'll wait for a pullback. And if you want to be the safer trader, like Taylor Trader does, like that little, like he has, like there is that effect of, hey, get in here. You're the number one play. You're trending up. Try to get in maybe before pre-market. Try to avoid that opening bell buy. So that way, if you are in a good area in pre-market and this does happen to you, at least you can get out maybe, and then you see what I'm saying at a good cost. Maybe add back in. Oh, it's holding crap. Now it's going up. So that's why, use your head if you want to get in there for that first 30 minutes right at the opening bell. It's very difficult to trade. I usually like to wait for a pullback at the opening bell or just wait 15, 30, 45 minutes into the day for my play to come to me. So hopefully you understand those things, what to look for and what to avoid at the opening bell.